What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another episode of Set Point. Happy Monday to you all. There's a lot to talk about in the volleyball world, such as Wisconsin getting the job done at Minnesota on Thursday, winning in 4 sets. That puts them all alone in the Big Ten Conference. What a crazy win. Want to know what's even crazier? University of San Diego, the Toreros, upsetting BYU for a second time on Friday in 5 sets. That puts them all alone in first place in the West Coast Conference with 3 games remaining. How about that? Washington going the distance and getting a huge game from Kara Bejama and beating those Utah Utes, those scrappy little dudes or dudettes, in 5 sets on Sunday. That keeps Washington's playoff hopes and NCAA title hopes alive. And also, how about Long Beach State pulling off not 1 but 2 upsets over the weekend, toppling UC Santa Barbara on Friday in straight sets and beating Cal Poly in 4 sets on Saturday. How big is that loss for Cal Poly, and what does that mean for their Big West Conference title hopes? Also, when it comes to high school girls volleyball, how about those Mater Dei Monarchs upsetting Redondo Union on the road in 5 sets? What happened and what adjustments were made? And Vista Murrieta, how about them pulling off not 1 but 2 upsets, beating Mira, Costa, and top seed Sierra Canyon in the Division I CIF State bracket? We have that and a lot more on Set Point. And once again, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Set Point. Once again, this is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, coming at you with another episode. Thank you to all the listeners that are tuning in, and from any platform you're listening to this on, whether it's Spreaker or whether it's iHeartRadio or whatever. So once again, thank you all for tuning in, because without you, this show wouldn't be anything. And to those that are supporting IE Sports Radio, thank you very much. Your support is greatly appreciated, and you have my gratitude. So let's jump right in. Well, let's dive right in to this episode. Alright, now, this will probably be the last time you'll probably hear me talk about this, but, let's talk about my Saturday night. My Saturday night included me going to the Long Beach State women's volleyball game against Cal Poly. It was Long Beach State's senior night. I actually arrived a little bit late. I actually missed the first set, to be honest. But I saw that Long Beach State took the first set against Cal Poly, 25-18. That was a huge first set by those little Long Beach State women's volleyball players. That was amazing by them. They really took it to the Mustangs in that first set. The second set was really close. Cal Poly was up by as many as 8. I think they were up like 22-14 at one point. And then suddenly Long Beach State rips off 7 straight points, and it's only 22-21. But back and forth they went, and eventually Cal Poly took the second set off of a kill from Maya Dvoracek. She's debatably one of the best players in the Big West Conference. Now the third set, it was tight throughout that third set. And then suddenly Long Beach State started reeling off point after point after point after point. And eventually they were up. And eventually they won that third set, 25-17. And suddenly Cal Poly is down 2-1 to Long Beach State, a team that most people didn't think that Cal Poly would be struggling against. Then the fourth set came. Cal Poly took an early lead. And then suddenly, Long Beach State, they just kept going after the ball with amazing digs from libero Haley Harward and amazing kills from freshman Tia Chavira. Yeah, Tia Chavira. That's the name you want to remember. She's normally a setter. She stepped up big at outside hitter. She was huge. She had 16 kills. And eventually Long Beach State closed the match with a double block from KJ Norval and Katie Kennedy. And that is your game. Winner, winner, grilled chicken dinner. Long Beach State upsets Cal Poly in 4 sets, taking that fourth set 25-19. What a huge win for Long Beach State. Let's hit the applause button for them. So yeah, that was a huge win for Long Beach State. They haven't really had the best season, but they've been making noise as of late. They're currently sitting in 4th place in the Big West Conference. That's a huge win for them. They might be able to go to the postseason. It won't be the NCAA tournament, considering the record is far below 500, and they don't play in a power conference like the Pac-12. But they could make the NIT or the CIT or whatever you all want to call it. I'm pretty sure it was called the NIT. So if Long Beach State makes the postseason, if they make the NIT, cool. If they don't, then it'll sting for a little bit, especially for the seniors. But Long Beach State is building something. Can you imagine what this team, Long Beach State, will be like come next season when they get like some other talented players like Mia Tuaniga? Like Mia Tuaniga from Mater Dei, and she's the little sister of Josh Tuaniga. They've got other prospects I've been hearing so much about, and they only lose 3 players. I mean, they obviously lose Haley Harward and KJ Norval and Ari Joie. Oh yeah, by the way, Saturday was Long Beach State senior night, so they honored Harward, Norval, and Joie. So, losing Ari Joie is always big, because considering she not only plays really great up front when it comes to blocking, but she also plays really well in serve receive and she plays really well on serve receive for a middle blocker. I even see her dig the ball a couple times against Cal Poly. She even had a few digs against Maya Dvoracek, which is huge. KJ Norval, I haven't heard much from her this season, but she definitely got a big opportunity on Saturday, and she definitely came up big. Joie and Norval had 12 and 13 kills respectively, so those were huge. Long Beach State hit 280 as a team, which was absolutely amazing. I've seen Long Beach State be really talented in the past, but with a young team like that, they definitely brought it to Cal Poly. And Haley Harward had 15 digs, and she also had 4 service aces. And I finally got a service ace on film live in person. So that was really cool, getting a Haley Harward service ace. I'll probably tell my kids about it if I ever have kids. But that's not the point. The point is that Long Beach State pulled off the dub against Cal Poly. Now Cal Poly, that loss right there, that was so disappointing by them. It wasn't just how Cal Poly lost, it's how they lost. They just didn't show they just kind of showed a lack of effort. And it's like, you're tied for the Big West Conference lead with only a few more games remaining, and you go out there and lay that big of an egg. I'm sorry, but that's a pretty big disappointment right there. I definitely think that something was missing. That was not the Cal Poly I was expecting. I thought Cal Poly was at least going to push that to a 5th set. But, it was Long Beach State's senior night. They got a good crowd. Their student section looked lively. There were even two students dressed up as unicorns, which was pretty funny. But Cal Poly, man, I was not too thrilled with how they played. I mean, from an objective standpoint, they just did not look like the Cal Poly that I thought they would be. They only had 1 player in double digits when it came to kills, and that was Dvoracek with 20 kills. She almost accounted for half the kills that Cal Poly had. Their second highest kill leader was, I believe, Madeline Mercer, who had 7 kills. So there's that. I mean, and also Cal Poly hit, I believe they only hit in the 140s, which is very, very strange for Cal Poly. I mean, Long Beach State is playing some of their best volleyball, because in addition to upsetting Cal Poly, they swept UC Santa Barbara in the Pyramid. I talked about this last week. I thought Santa Barbara was going to get the dub against Long Beach, considering Santa Barbara has had such a great team, and this is debatably their best team since 2013, and maybe 2009. And also, they have debatably one of the best players in the nation on their team, being Lindsey Ruddins. Long Beach State pretty much shut them down. It's scary to see what Long Beach State's going to be in the near future, especially when they get players like Mia Tuaniga. And I think they get other players from other schools. I know they're going to get one from Sierra Canyon, but And they also will probably get some players from like Long Beach Poly, maybe Lakewood, all that. So for Cal Poly, you kind of have to wonder what just went wrong for them. Did they overlook their opponent? Were they a little bit too overconfident after their win against UC Santa Barbara last week? That just was mind-boggling for me. It's like, how do you go out there and lay an egg? I'm just saying, Now, with that loss, Cal Poly is in the worst position it could be. But this also leaves the door open for Hawaii to just finish up the rest of the season. Because if Cal Poly wins out and Hawaii wins out, Cal Poly is the outright conference champion, and they are instantly in the NCAA tournament. And then Cal Poly has to hope to the volleyball gods that they get into the tournament as an at-large. So, and again, you also need to remember that the Big West Conference is not a Power 5 conference like the Pac-12 and the Big 10 and the Big 12, all those other conferences, the SEC, all that. So it might be tough for Cal Poly and UC Santa Barbara to get in. Both. However, what does help Cal Poly and Santa Barbara's chances of making the NCAA tournament is their RPIs. They have some of the best RPIs in the nation right now, currently, and also their strength of schedule also helps. Especially with Santa Barbara getting some big early wins against UCLA and Pepperdine as well. Both those teams are having great seasons. But if you're Cal Poly, you're kind of kicking yourself, and you're kind of wondering what just went wrong. So for Cal Poly, they have 2 more matches remaining on the schedule. Off the top, as for as for Hawaii, they have 2 matches. Last week, Hawaii had a bye, which is kind of strange, to be honest. It's a good and a bad thing. It's good because you don't have to travel. You don't have to travel, or teams don't have to travel to you. But at the same time, it could be the whole rest versus rust thing. So there's that. Hawaii has 2 home games this week. They play Cal State Northridge on Thursday, then they play Long Beach State on Friday. Hawaii definitely has a really good chance of winning the Big West Conference outright. Here's the scenario. Hawaii is in first place in the Big West Conference at 12-2 with 2 games remaining. If they win out, it's easy. If they win out, they're outright conference champions. That said, however, Hawaii's schedule looks debatably tough because Northridge isn't really the worst team, but you saw what happened against UC Irvine. I was also told that Hawaii had some players out due to injury, and now they're at full strength for the most part. But they were pretty banged up at the start of conference play, but now they've gotten it together. Hawaii, I can see them beating Cal State Northridge. Now, for Long Beach State, who is playing some of their best volleyball right now, that could be a problem right there. I can see Hawaii struggling against Long Beach State because Long Beach has debatably one of the best liberos out there, being Haley Harward. And again, Long Beach State is playing great volleyball as Kashana Williams, only a sophomore, is getting kill after kill. Ari Joie, has been playing big in the middle. Katie Kennedy has been big for the offense. Carly Agner-Swayze has been magnificent at the setter position. And I think that Long Beach Hawaii matchup is going to be a really good matchup. Granted, Long Beach State is going to be forced out of its comfort zone as they will have to play at Hawaii, whereas for the most part they've been playing really well at home. And this is, if it weren't for that one loss against UC Davis where they had that questionable tip call from the refs, this Long Beach State team could be on a 6-game winning streak for all I know. I believe it was 6-game winning streak, maybe it was 5. Either way, this is definitely they're definitely one of the hotter teams in the Big West Conference. They're playing really great volleyball. It wouldn't be surprising if they upset Hawaii because when it comes to Hawaii and Long Beach State, when it comes to volleyball, anything can happen. Long Beach took a set off of Hawaii at the Pyramid, and I was told that there was a lot of Hawaii fans in the Pyramid as well. So it's basically gonna be Long Beach versus the entire state of Hawaii. So if Long Beach wins, that's great. It's not surprising, and it's great considering that definitely boosts Long Beach's chances of making the NIT. But if they don't win, I still can see them getting in the NIT and, possibly building momentum for next year, because this Long Beach State team is going to be really good. As for Hawaii, if they win, the same thing goes. If Hawaii wins outright, they're in the tournament. Now for Cal Poly, they have 2 home matches. First off, they on Friday they play UC Irvine, which they're scrapping toward the bottom, unfortunately. This is one of UC Irvine's most down years. That said, they also pulled off that victory against Hawaii. Cal Poly also has another game on Saturday against Cal State Fullerton, which could be huge, because if Hawaii somehow does lose on Thursday or Friday, or both days, heaven forbid, that leaves the door open for Cal Poly. So here's the scenario. If both teams win out, Hawaii is the outright conference champion. If Hawaii loses a match and then Cal Poly wins out, both teams will be tied for first place in conference, and who knows, maybe it'll go to a tiebreaker game when it comes to that match. I have seen tiebreakers go to number of sets won between the two teams, or they just scrap that all together and then they just play one more match together. It would basically be like the Ivy League, which I'm going to get into a little bit. But if both teams lose out, then Hawaii's the outright conference champion. If both teams split, Hawaii's the outright conference champion. So Cal Poly is definitely rooting for Northridge or Long Beach to possibly upset the Rainbow Wahine. Hawaii definitely has the tougher path going forward into this week. Granted, they play at Stan Sheriff Center, considering that is pretty much their safe haven, other than that one loss to Irvine. So yeah, I realistically think that Hawaii can win out. As great of a volleyball team that Long Beach State has been as of late, I don't know if they can win at Stan Sheriff. I mean, last week I predicted that Santa Barbara was going to beat Long Beach in the Pyramid, which would be their first win at the Pyramid since 2011, and that plan backfired. But Hawaii's just playing such great volleyball as of late. And, they're starting to get healthy. They're pretty much fully healthy. They're playing their best ball as of late. And they know how big this week is, considering if they lose one game, that leaves the door open for Cal Poly. And Cal Poly has the tiebreaker over Hawaii. If it does have to go to sets when it comes to a tie, then Cal Poly owns that. If it goes to points, then between the two teams, I'm not sure who owns that category. But either way, Hawaii knows that it cannot take Northridge or Long Beach lightly, and they definitely can't look ahead to Friday. In Thursday's match, they cannot look, when they play Northridge, they can't look ahead to Long Beach, because the Big West Conference has had so much parity this year, with Irvine upsetting Hawaii, Davis having a pretty decent home record, other than losing to the Big Three of the Big West Conference, Long Beach upsetting UCSB and Cal Poly. So we'll see what happens this week. I'm really interested to see what will happen, and I'm probably going to, even though that game between Long Beach and Hawaii will be played at 9 p.m. Pacific time, I can still see myself doing a recap of that game and staying up until maybe 11, because I believe in Hawaii time it's 6 p.m. over there, 6 or 7 p.m. Not 100% sure, but I'll still be wide awake when it comes to California times. I'll probably be focusing on other things, maybe like high school football and all that. But I'll be wide awake for that Hawaii Long Beach State match. So there's that right there. Now let's get into the milestones, because we have more milestones to get into. Start from last week, starting with junior libero Riley Cookerly, who reached 2,000 career digs in her collegiate career, and she has 258 more digs than any other Division I junior in the nation. So that's pretty impressive. Now for Troy, in the Sun Belt Conference, Cheyenne Hayes becomes the third Trojan to record 400 kills in back-to-back seasons. So that's huge for Cheyenne Hayes. Big shout out to her. Then we have Nia Robinson, who of Northwestern, who was honored today on surpassing 1,000 career kills, which was definitely amazing. And then we also have Paige Whipple, who had 22 kills in 20 digs against Oregon State in yesterday's 5-set win over the Badgers. And that's Arizona's first 2020 match from a player since October of 2016. So that's definitely huge right there. Then we have Rafa Bonifacio, who tied the Division I record with 39 digs. And Rafa hasn't really been a libero for all that long. This is only like our second or third week as a libero, so that's huge. Big shout out to C-Sub Volleyball. Then we have Yumi Garcia of Charlotte, who became the all-time dig leader in school when it comes in at the school. So that's huge for Charlotte and for Garcia. Then we have Sydney Hilly, who had 78 assists for Wisconsin, which is the second most in Division I when it comes to a 4-set match. So that's huge for Hilly. Sydney Hilly came up big for Wisconsin, which I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. And then we have Allie Barber, who is the all-time kill leader for Marquette Volleyball. So that's huge right there. So big ups to Allie Barber. Then we have Hallie Wisnowski, who reached 300 kills in a season for the third straight year. So she's not too far away from 1,000 kills. And the only other Louisiana volleyball player to do that was Nia Kigundu. So that's huge for Louisiana. And Wisnowski isn't too far off from 100. So big ups to Wisnowski. Then we have Brenna Edwards, who rewrote the history books by recording 39 kills for Indiana in a 5-set match against Maryland this past week. So that was huge for her. And then we also have what's her face? Courtney Bazario of Iowa, registering a triple-double. Her first career triple-double for Iowa in a 5-set match against Nebraska. Yes, I kid you not. Iowa went 5 sets with Nebraska, and Courtney Bazario, only a sophomore who comes from Orange Lutheran, registered a triple-double. So that's huge right there. And then Saluki's women's volleyball team tallied their 2,232nd dig of the season, which is a school record. So that's definitely huge right there. And also a big shout out to Nicole. I'm probably butchering her last name. Latangi Welch, Nicole Welch of UC Santa Barbara, who registered her 100th career win with the Gauchos in a win on Saturday against Cal State Northridge. So that was huge right there. Let's hit the applause button for all those players. Actually, her name is pronounced Lantange. I can't pronounce that. I'm just going to call her Coach Nicole Welch. Now let's hit the applause button. Okay, her pronunciation is pronounced Lantane. So, Nicole Lantane Welch. So, big shout out to UCSB's women's volleyball website for having the pronunciation. So, Nicole Lantane Welch reached 100 wins when it came to her coaching career at UC Santa Barbara. So, that's huge for her. Big shout out to the Big West Conference. Let's see if you can pause button one more time for every milestone breaker right there. All right, now let's jump into the high school volleyball scene where the CIF State playoffs have begun. And Mater Dei, last week or 2 weeks ago, they lost to Redondo Union in the CIF Southern Section Division I finals. That ended their two-year run as Southern Section champions. It was a tough loss for them. It was tough for the players, especially for players like Mia Tuaniga, Meg Brown, Lauren Tarnoff, Reagan Merck. So 1 week after, Mater Dei played Redondo Union again. This time it wasn't at Cerritos College. It was at Redondo Union because, when it comes to the state playoffs, host sites are played at the games are played at the host at the higher seed. So if you're the number 1 seed, you basically have home court advantage throughout the regional playoffs and so on and so forth. So, but Redondo Union and Mater Dei faced each other at Redondo Union. It looked like it was going to be the start looked like it was going to be all Redondo Union, as Redondo just was strong all over the place. They were all over the place, stringing together runs. They got their act. They started off a little slow, but then as the set progressed, they managed to pull away from Mater Dei, taking that first set 25-19. And so far, it's looking like this is going to be another easy win for Redondo Union. However, Mater Dei comes out firing out the gate. They pretty much stormed to a double-digit lead, and eventually they had no intention of slowing down as they took set 2 25-14. That's probably Redondo Union's worst set loss this season, because if you hold Redondo Union to 14 points, you definitely are doing something correctly. I mean, Redondo was held to 15 points, but that was because Mater Dei had its back against the wall. This time, Mater Dei was basically just in control throughout that entire set. And I was also told that Mater Dei was up by more than 11, and Redondo had to make some sort of mini run in order to take down to try to take down Mater Dei and win that set. So that's definitely huge for Mater Dei, picking up that big set win. Tommy Chafin said everything went wrong that set. But the third set was Redondo Union got back to business. They got big games from Nalani Ayazia, Cami Minor, and they also got a big game from Jody Smith and the Miller, and then eventually Redondo took that third set 25-20. And the fourth set, it was close, back and forth. It was tied 14-14. Then Redondo Union went up, I believe it was 16-14, 18 or 18-16, and suddenly Redondo was up 22-20, and suddenly they could feel that victory. They can feel that they were going to get another victory. But Mater Dei did not go down without a fight. Mia Tuaniga came up big, as she was great when it came to blocking and getting kills. And eventually, Mater Dei took that fourth set 25-23, and suddenly this game's going 5. And the fifth set, Mater Dei just stormed out the gate. It was basically almost like a copy of that second set. They were up 6-3, then eventually they were up 10-3, and then with match point in hand at 14-6, Mia Tuaniga ends the match with a booming service ace, and that is your game right there. Mater Dei upsets Redondo Union on the road, 3-2. What an amazing victory. That deserves the applause button right there. So let's talk about Mater Dei for a bit. So Mater Dei is definitely one of the best teams nationally. They were the 5th best team in the nation going into that match, while Redondo Union was the 3rd best team. Mater Dei had lost to Redondo Union twice this year, one in 5 sets when Redondo didn't even have Cami Minor, one of their best players and one of the best uncommitted players in the nation. Then they lost in the CIF State or the CIF Southern Section Division I final. Now this time, Mater Dei flipped the script. And for those of you that don't know, Mater Dei is the reigning state champion when it comes to the Open Division. Mater Dei is a huge deal when it comes to the state playoffs. They've made it to the state finals the past 2 seasons. They're definitely known for playing strong volleyball. They're not one to just sulk after losing in the Southern Section playoffs. State's a whole different thing. And, sometimes it's funny because sometimes most teams just sulk after working so hard of winning, make it to the Southern Section finals and then just straight up losing. But Mater Dei just took a different approach. They pretty much just went back in the gym, worked on stuff, watched film. They prepped for Redondo really well. So Mater Dei definitely just was the better team. Hats off to Dan Odell. The thing about Mater Dei is you don't beat them that easily. If you beat them and then that loss is going to stick with them, but they're going to use it as motivation. And they use it to drown out the outside noise of all the doubt and all that. I actually called that match going 5, and I really wanted it to go 5. And then when I saw that it was going 5, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, and you have to give credit to Mater Dei. They were down for most of that 4th set until Mia came up clutch in that with some timely kills and blocks. So you have to give it up for Mater Dei. As for Redondo Union, with those 12 seniors, it's tough. It's a stinging loss, especially with that huge of a senior class losing on your home floor. Redondo Union rarely loses at home. The only team that's really beaten them at home is Mater Dei, and to lose like that is very tough, especially for your seniors, especially when you're coming off of a CIF Southern Section Division I championship over Mater Dei. But for Redondo Union, they have a lot to be proud of. They have nothing to be sad about. They have nothing to be ashamed of. They have nothing to hang their heads down over. They need to hold their heads high up. With the amount of talent that they bring back, such as Minor, it's not just Cami Minor they bring back. They bring back a lot of underclassmen as well. Sure, they lose 12 players, which have been key to this big turnaround for Redondo Union, but honestly, this team has a bright future, and they have a really good head coach being Tommy Chaffins. If you've been to a Redondo Union girls volleyball game, you will see the passion and energy that Tommy Chaffins brings. He is debatably one of the best coaches in girls volleyball when it comes to Southern California, and he's been the key to this turnaround. He too has been a great key for this turnaround for Redondo Union, and that's why Redondo has always been in the thick of it when it comes to the Southern Section when it comes to Division I, and this is why they're in the Open Division and not in Division I when it comes to the state playoffs, considering the difference between Open Division and Division I is the Open Division is you're the best team nationally, whereas Division I, you're the best team when it comes to certain other teams that aren't ranked nationally. So for Mater Dei, they're ranked nationally. They're 5th in the nation according to Max Preps. Redondo Union was third in the nation when it came to Max Preps. I'm pretty sure those two are going to flip-flop with one another. So, but again, you have to love the moxie and effort that Redondo Union brought, because last year they were young. They had a lot of juniors and sophomores. This year they had a bunch of seniors, and they have a really talented junior that's uncommitted. And it's just Redondo's not going anywhere. Let me tell you that Redondo is going to be good for years to come. They obviously had their big senior class, but this is just the beginning for Redondo Union. This is This was one of their better teams since 2014 when they won CIF in Division 1 and they also won state. And they can only keep getting better, and they also won 2 tournaments this year. They won their own tournament, being the Redondo tournament late in the season, and they also won the An Kang tournament in Hawaii, which that's a really tough tournament to win in because some of the best teams go in that tournament. And when you play in the An Kang tournament, that's basically like week -1 when it comes to volleyball. It's like a week 0 game in football when it comes to high school football, but you're basically getting your season started. Then you've got a little bit of a layoff until like the school year starts. So that's that for Redondo Union. As for Mater Dei, they move on to the SoCal Regional or State semifinals. SoCal Region. This is actually the SoCal Regional Finals. They will play at Torrey Pines. I believe that game is going to be on Tuesday or Wednesday. That's going to be a really good game right there. I believe Torrey Pines is the second best team in the nation last week. So Mater Dei is going to have their work cut out for them when it comes to that match. I expect a really great game between both teams. I think Mater Dei can win that game. But I will say this. Torrey Pines is really good. This is debatably Torrey Pines' best team since 2017. And Torrey Pines is not to be messed around with because those San Diego teams really come to play, and Torrey Pines is no slouch. So they only lost twice on the year, once to Vista Murrieta and then once to La Costa Canyon, which is not even in the Open Division. So Mater Dei is going to have their work cut out for them, and Torrey Pines has some really talented players such as Maya Satchel, who actually played at Corona Del Mar until she transferred. But Torrey Pines is going to bring their A game, especially since it's going to be at Torrey Pines. Mater Dei has to travel up there. That's a long drive up there down to San Diego, but I think Mater Dei can pull it off. I expect that match to also go 5. If anything, I would really like it to go 5. I'm going to call it right now. The match goes 5, and I won't say who wins because, I don't want to jinx anyone or I don't want to mispredict. But I think Mater Dei has a legit shot at winning that game. I really think they can win that game. As long as they serve and pass off. They win the serve-pass battle, that game's going to be theirs and theirs alone. But if the other team serves and pass well, then it'll be interesting. That's what Dan Odell said one time. Or Coach Dan Odell said one time, and he's the coach for Mater Dei, by the way. So this is going to be a big test for Mater Dei. And on the other side of the bracket, in the NorCal bracket, Murrieta Catholic will be facing Bishop O'Dowd in the NorCal Regional Finals. And, it could be Murrieta Catholic versus Torrey Pines, but it's going to be nationally ranked versus nationally ranked either way. I believe the best team in the nation so far is Newcastle from Indiana or something. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely a team from Indiana. That team did lose to Assumption, which has had a few losses here and there. So who knows? Maybe Mater Dei, Torrey Pines, or Murrieta Catholic, or Bishop O'Dowd will possibly be the national champion when it comes to Max Prep. So we'll see how it goes, though. I really am excited for that Mater Dei Torrey Pines game. Torrey Pines, Mater Dei always seems to get the better of Torrey Pines when it comes to the tournament games or when it comes to the state playoff games. But I think this is definitely a definite different Torrey Pines team. So we shall see how it goes. So now let's jump into the teams that have already... Now let's jump back into the college volleyball scene, where 2 teams have qualified for the NCAA tournament. That being Pitt or Pittsburgh, and then the other being Colorado State. So let's give those 2 a round of applause right there. So Pitt, as most people know, is the second best team in the nation when it comes to college volleyball. They've pretty much they pretty much won their conference outright. They have 3 games left. 3 games left, starting with Florida State and North Carolina State. They play Florida State on Friday, and they also play North Carolina State on Sunday. It's going to be at North Carolina State. The ACC has been won by Pitt already, but I can see Pitt going a perfect 16-0. I don't see Pitt losing anytime soon. This is debatably Pitt's best team in quite some time, and last I checked, they were the number 2 ranked team in the nation, and it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't move any spots. It would be really good to see them. It would be really good to see Pitt going undefeated in ACC play. Some people might frown upon it because no balance and it's just one team just dominating the ACC. But the ACC actually has some really good teams. Florida State is one of them. I think Florida State can give Pitt a battle. Not many teams have given Pitt a battle. Georgia Tech took Pitt to 5 before succumbing to them. I think Florida State can take a set off of Pitt this week. But I'm not saying they can't. They will, but they can. And I can pretty much see Pitt just tearing through North Carolina State. Louisville, is the last game for Pitt. That should also be a really good one, considering Louisville is also improved. As for the rest of the ACC, it consists of Pitt being in first place, and then it's a 3-way tie for second place, being Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina. Florida State and Louisville are behind those 3 teams, as well as Boston College. The ACC definitely has a good chance of having a lot of teams go into the NCAA tournament. I think Pitt through Boston College can make the tournament, the NCAA tournament, because those teams have some really have a really good overall record, and they've really performed well in the ACC. The true surprise is North Carolina. But if you take away that ACC record from North Carolina has a 3-7 overall record in non-conference play. So that can pose a bit of a red flag for those Tar Heels. But winning those ACC games has paid dividends for North Carolina, and they're showing that they're not just a basketball school. They have some. Those Tar Heels have some good wins, being a 5-set win against Florida State, a 4-set win against Duke, being a rivalry game, a straight set win over Boston College, and they have 2. North Carolina has 2 5-set wins over Florida State, which is definitely impressive. So North Carolina is definitely proving themselves as a possible NCAA tournament pick. I'm pretty certain the ACC is a Power 5 conference, but you also have to look at the other conferences, and do they take? And you also have to wonder, will the NCAA take 7 teams from the ACC? Because you have 7 teams from the ACC that they'll take, and then 9 teams that are over 500 in the Pac-12, which I'm going to be talking about a little later. So you kind of have to wonder, is every team in the ACC, which range from Pitt, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Florida State, Louisville, and Boston College safe? Are all 7 of those teams a lock? Pitt's obviously a lock, considering they've won the conference. This is their 3rd straight year of winning the conference, by the way, and it's very impressive that Pitt has definitely just been up there. But can the other teams make the NCAA tournament? Notre Dame, I think, should make the tournament. Georgia Tech should also make the tournament. North Carolina is iffy, considering they have some good wins, but not too many wins outside of ACC play. Florida State should be a lock, considering they They also beat Minnesota in straight sets early in the season. Louisville should also have a good chance at making the tournament, and then Boston College is also up there as well. So, I'm not certain. It is going to be a big bummer for some of these teams that don't make the tournament when it comes to the ACC. There's also the NIT, but it's just, the NIT isn't the same as the NCAA tournament. But it's always good to have some postseason play, especially going forward if you're trying to build something like Long Beach State. This week for North Carolina, they play Duke, which, that's a rivalry game. That's going to be a huge game for Duke and for North Carolina. I see North Carolina winning that one since it's going to be at North Carolina. And when it comes to the Duke-North Carolina rivalry, anything can happen. I think it's called the Blue Rivalry, the Big Blue Rivalry. So it's definitely going to be huge. And then next week, North Carolina, that's their only game this week. That's North Carolina's only game this week. And then next week, North Carolina plays Wake Forest. Wake Forest is at the bottom, but if you take away that ACC conference record, Wake Forest is 10-1 overall. So they can't underestimate Wake Forest. And then to close the season, North Carolina has Virginia Tech. That Wake Forest game is basically a wolf in sheep's clothing right there. Or a sheep in wolf's clothing. Or no, wolf in sheep's clothing. Considering, just because Wake Forest doesn't have the best ACC record doesn't mean they're not capable of knocking off a team and they're not capable of winning. So we'll see how it goes for North Carolina. Hopefully they do make the NCAA tournament. It would be quite the shame if their non-conference record hindered them, but that's just me. So now let's jump into the Mountain West Conference, where Colorado State, they've won 25 in a row ever since losing to Cal, which has been one of the more improved teams, has locked in a spot in the NCAA tournament. Colorado State has 3 more games remaining, and they've pretty much gotten through the gist of their schedule. Colorado State is definitely a team that no one wants to face, considering with all the talent they have and with the hot streak they've been on. And looking at some of their wins, they have some standout victories being against Oklahoma, Florida State, Colorado. They have 2 wins against Colorado, being a rivalry game. I don't know what the name of that rivalry is called, but I'm just going to call it the Rocky Mountain rivalry. They also, Colorado State also has a win against Cal Poly. They have a win again, and they've done really well in their conference. This week, Colorado State has San Jose State, which isn't that good. They're meh. And then they also have Nevada. Nevada is a bit of a tricky one. Now, Nevada isn't really the best team, but if you look at their overall record, they've improved. Nevada has definitely improved. So Colorado State's got to be wary of them. And then also, Colorado State has one final match against Denver on the 30th, which is the day before the selection show, which is cool. But overall, I think Colorado State can do some damage in the NCAA tournament. The second best team in the Mountain West Conference is Wyoming, who is 14-2. That's pretty good actually, considering Wyoming has also went 5 with Colorado State. So I can see Wyoming getting into the NCAA tournament. UNLV is also 13-3 and 17-10 overall. Then Boise State kind of dropped off a little after having such a good start in the league or in conference, and they're 16-10 overall and then 8-8. So we'll see what happens when it comes to this conference. I don't think this conference is a Power 5 conference. I think Wyoming gets in for sure, and UNLV will probably just squeak in. If not, they'll be the top seed in the NIT. So again, we'll see how it goes when it comes to that. When it comes to the NCAA tournament. So yeah. All right, now let's talk about some key matchups that happened last week. So first key matchup that happened last week was San Diego upsetting BYU in 5 sets. This is the first time since 2011 that San Diego beat BYU twice in one season. That's definitely impressive by the Toreros. I had the Toreros losing that one. I thought BYU, having lost to San Diego at BYU, would have motivated them to take down the Toreros at the Jenny Craig Pavilion in San Diego. But that wasn't the case. BYU, I guess, was one step behind, and for San Diego, they definitely are making their case for most improved, because San Diego started the season off 0-2, and they even had a few bad losses. They had a tough 5-set loss to Nebraska, but they also had a tough loss to UCSB, and then, conference play came. They were pretty much on a roll. The Toreros were on a roll. They even beat BYU, and then they lost at Pepperdine. But with this win over BYU, this definitely puts the Toreros in a really good position to win the West Coast Conference. They have 3 games remaining, and the scary part about that is that they're all at home. They're all going to be at Jenny Craig Pavilion in San Diego. This week, I believe the Toreros play Gonzaga, and then they also play, I want to say, all I know is that their games this week are not that difficult. I think they definitely can win those 2 games, which would be huge for the Toreros, because they haven't clinched the outright conference title. They haven't, but they are so close. They are very close to clinching the conference title and the automatic qualifier for the NCAA tournament. So we'll see how it goes for them. We'll see. We'll definitely see how it goes. But I think San Diego pretty much can close out conference play with undefeated, because they don't, their opponents are not, because the only opponent that I can see San Diego struggling with is Loyola Marymount, and Loyola Marymount is the type of team that always saves its best game for last. Because last year BYU was undefeated going into that Loyola Marymount game, and suddenly Loyola Marymount played. Granted, it was at Loyola Marymount. They swept BYU just like that, and then so San Diego could have the same thing happen to them at home, but it would take a miracle for that to happen. And even if San Diego loses that game, San Diego is still in a really good position going forward, because they own the tiebreaker over BYU. They beat BYU twice. The only way San Diego does not win the West Coast Conference is if they lose 2 games and then BYU wins outright. So that's how. But other than that, San Diego is in the best position possible. Yeah, they play Gonzaga on Thursday and then Portland on Saturday. Both are at San Diego. Both of those are definitely winnable for San Diego. I don't even remember the last time they lost to Gonzaga when it came to women's volleyball. And I don't see Portland. I don't see Portland pulling off the upset. But crazier things have happened. Those 2 games are trap games. However, for the Loyola Marymount game, because LMU or Loyola Marymount is really good, because their records don't show it, but Loyola, like I said, Loyola has that springs the surprise on when they're the underdog when it comes to that to their final game of the season. I mean, just ask BYU. Heck, even ask Stanford. Loyola Marymount made the NCAA tournament, and they knocked out Stanford in the second round, which no one expected. No one expected Loyola Marymount to pull off that win. So, if anything, LMU can give San Diego its worst nightmare match. But for the most part, I think San Diego wins the conference outright. Another key matchup for BYU going forward would be them against Pepperdine. They do play Pepperdine at BYU, and I think BYU can win that one. But again, Pepperdine is definitely one of the more improved teams this year, considering they're in third place in the West Coast Conference, and they've definitely been really impressive this year. And they have such great talent on that team. So we'll see how it goes for the West Coast Conference. But honestly, I think San Diego wins out, and then they pretty much finish the league with just one little blemish, being to Pepperdine. And Pepperdine. They're 16-10 overall and 12-3. They should get into the NCAA tournament. But we'll see. And because Pepperdine's body of work also shows, they went 5 with Pitt, they went 4 with Utah, and they went 4 with Texas A&M. So there's that. So we'll see how it goes for the West Coast Conference. Now, another key matchup that occurred last week was Wisconsin beating Minnesota in 4 sets last week. Despite winning in 4 sets, all 4 of those sets were grueling and very tough to win for the Badgers. And with that win, the Badgers are all alone in first place. But that said, their schedule is about to pick up, as their schedule only gets tougher from here on out. Beating Minnesota was one thing, but the 2 nights after, they were able to take down Michigan State, which was huge for them. Now they've got a big week this week. They play Iowa on Friday, which is going to be on their senior night. Now that right there is a trap game right there, considering they played Nebraska 2 nights later, or 2 days after they have their senior night. In Iowa, they had to go. They went 5 with Nebraska, and more importantly, Iowa has Courtney Bazzario. She's only a sophomore, but she a pretty darn good sophomore at that. So Wisconsin's definitely going to have this is definitely Wisconsin's biggest week of the season, and then you also have next week where they have to play Penn State at Penn State. It's really tough to win at Penn State because they have some passionate volleyball fans. So Wisconsin definitely has a tough road ahead. And it starts Friday when they play Iowa. I mean, granted, it will be their senior night, but the Big Ten there are no easy games in the Big Ten. Absolutely no easy games. You look at the conference. Wisconsin is barely clinging to a 1-game league when it comes to the Big Ten conference lead. Then Nebraska is right behind them. Nebraska, Penn State, and Minnesota are all right behind Wisconsin. They all have a chance at winning that Big West Conference title. Then Michigan's also up there. Purdue is also improved. Purdue actually has come a long way. That win over Nebraska was definitely impressive. Illinois is 50-50. Ohio State is up there. Michigan State is up there. Is having a solid season despite the 5-11 record in the Big Ten. And Iowa, despite being 3-13, that record is very misguiding because they had to go. I know that Nebraska has a lot of young players, but honestly, Iowa. This just goes to show you that Iowa has a bright future ahead of them, especially with Bazzario. So no team is safe in the Big Ten. No team is safe. Even against Indiana, even against Northwestern, even against Rutgers, no team is safe in the Big Ten Conference. I'm just pretty much saying. So this is pretty much gut check time for the Badgers, especially in these next 3 games, because one loss could spell doom for them. And and Wisconsin's only blemish was to Ohio State, which I'm pretty sure no one predicted them pulling off the win. So we'll see how Wisconsin does this week. I expect Wisconsin to beat Iowa, But Nebraska's going to be their big time matchup where they have to come up big. It's against a young Nebraska team, and Nebraska's going to be hungry. But that said, I think Wisconsin's going to beat Nebraska in 5. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's going to be another 5. I'm predicting another 5-setter. I think Nebraska will be forced out of its comfort zone, considering Nebraska is such a young team. But I think Nebraska can hang with Wisconsin. They were able to hang with Penn State, but they were able to hang with Penn State, and they were able to beat Penn State. So we'll see how Nebraska does against Wisconsin. But I've got Wisconsin beating the Cornhuskers in 5 sets. So we shall see how that one goes. So now let's go into the SEC, where Kentucky, those Wildcats, took down the Florida Gators in 5 sets on Sunday. So that was a huge win for Kentucky. That puts Kentucky in a really good position going forward. They now have they not only have the tiebreaker over Florida, but they have a slim half-game conference lead over the Gators with 3 games remaining for them. That was a huge victory that Kentucky picked up over when it came to Florida. They did a great job of not looking ahead. This Kentucky team is looking very interesting going into the postseason. I thought Florida was going to win that matchup, honestly, because Florida has some great weapons such as Katie Hammonds and Thayer Hall and Rachel Kramer, but this Kentucky team, they were able to pull out the victory despite having losses to Georgia and Texas A&M. Georgia is definitely good, though. They're definitely one of the more overlooked teams, and they're definitely one of the more made fun of teams, especially when it comes to football. Oh, that's the wrong one. Yes, everyone still makes fun of Georgia and the choking jokes, especially when it comes to all Georgia sports, which is sad. Hopefully Georgia does shave off that choking label, and hopefully the state of Georgia will be able to bring home a championship when it comes to either the NCAA, when it comes to collegiate sports or professional sports. Other than that, Texas A&M also beat Kentucky, which was also huge a few weeks ago. So for Kentucky to get back and take down Florida is definitely impressive. Their remaining schedule consists of Missouri, LSU, and Ole Miss. Kentucky's going to have a tough time. Kentucky will have a little bit of a time against Missouri. I definitely think if they get past Missouri, they should be golden the rest of the way, considering, other than like LSU. LSU could be a little bit of trouble as well, considering LSU is one of the more overlooked teams in that conference, despite their 14-11 record and 8-7 conference record. And then Ole Miss, they're having an iffy year. Their overall record is good, but their conference record is meh. But I think Kentucky, if they get past Missouri, then it should be smooth sailing for the Wildcats. As for Florida, now they have a lot. Their work is cut out for them. They have Auburn. They have 4 games left. They have Auburn on Wednesday. Then they have Georgia on Sunday. Both games are on the road. I can see Florida beating Auburn, because Auburn, unfortunately, is at the bottom of the barrel. But Georgia's going to be a tough test for Florida, because Georgia has definitely shown their true colors, and they've pretty much shown that they can hang in the SEC. If Florida gets past Georgia, they do have Arkansas next week, and then they also have Texas A&M. But this week is going to be huge for Florida. If they want to have some sort of chance of winning the SEC, then they got to win outright. They got to win their games and let the rest take care of itself. That's all you can really do at this point. Florida had its chance of knocking off Kentucky, and then they lost both times in 5. One at the Swamp and one at Kentucky. So or Lexington. So it's going to take a miracle for Florida to win the conference. You also have to watch out for Georgia. Georgia is also licking their lips and hoping that they can pull off a win. They could pull off the improbable. This week they have South Carolina against the Gamecocks, and then Sunday they also have Florida, and then they close out the season against Alabama. It's going to be at Alabama, so I can still see Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, and Texas A&M getting into the NCAA tournament, because I believe the SEC is a Power 5 conference, so chances are we will see at least 5. Maybe South Carolina slips into the conference as well. So we'll see how it goes. Again, we'll see how it goes. The selection show won't be until December 1st. And you best believe I'll be doing a show the day after. So we'll see how it goes, though. Maybe I'll even do a show immediately after the selection show. We'll see, though. We'll see. Everyone pretty much is watching football on Sundays, but that's just me. So can't believe we're already a little past over an hour. So now let's jump into the Pac-12, where Washington barely got past Utah yesterday. That was a huge win for the Huskies, and that win is also huge considering Washington is now all alone in second place in the Pac-12 with 4 games remaining. Now, Washington has been an interesting suspect in the Pac-12. They are the only team to have knocked off Stanford. What the problem is that they don't get to face Stanford again. There is no Stanford versus Washington Part 2 unless the two meet in the NCAA tournament. They have, however, been the victim of losing both times to USC, which, me being a USC fan, I'm happy about. But, for Washington, that's something that's kind of going to stick to you for the rest of this season. And then Washington also lost to Utah the first time. So for Washington, they have their work cut out for them when it comes to winning the Pac-12. And they also lost to Washington State to open up conference play as well. So Washington is definitely a team to keep an eye on when it comes to the NCAA tournament, because this team has some really good firepower, such as Kara Bejema. She had such a big game on Sunday. She had 20 kills. She had more than 20 kills. She had 26 kills, and she had 8 kills in set 5, and she also hit 500. And she also had 3 digs and 3 blocks in the 5th set as well. So that was a huge performance from Kara Bejema. She can make a possible run for Pac-12 Player of the Year, but I'm pretty sure that honor is going to go to Catherine Plummer or Jenna Gray or Morgan Hens of Stanford. As for Stanford, Stanford is back to being regular old dominant Stanford. With Catherine Plummer back in the lineup, nothing is really going to get past them. Stanford took down both the Southern California schools, USC and 4 on Friday, and then Stanford also took down UCLA yesterday at the Maples Pavilion. Stanford is in a good position to win the Pac-12. However, they have a really tough challenge against Utah on Friday. Last time these two teams faced, Stanford had to dodge 2 match points against the Utes. This time, Stanford's going to be forced out of its comfort zone. They're going to play at Utah. Utah plays really well at their home court. It's also tough to play at Utah, considering everything is different in Utah. The altitude, the fansmanship, everything. So I definitely can see that one going 5 again. If you're Washington, you're hoping Utah pulls off the win. Because if Stanford loses twice and then Washington wins outright, Washington has the tiebreaker over Stanford in case those two finish tied for first in the Pac-12. Because, like I said, there is no Washington versus Stanford Part 2, which, well, it would be cool to see, but at the same time, Stanford didn't have Catherine Plummer in that match, so Washington definitely forced them out of their comfort zone, and it also helps that one of Stanford's assistant coaches knew what to expect from one of Stanford's players, considering he used to coach one of Stanford's players, being Kendall Kipp, which I'm referring to Steve Astor when it comes to the assistant coaches. Speaking of Kendall Kipp, hopefully she does get better. She has been out for a few games. Hopefully I didn't jinx her when I said she's going to be the National Freshman of the Year. I really hope she does come back to the point where she can play again this year, because it would be quite the bummer if she just didn't come back, and it would be disappointing because Kendall Kipp has such a bright future, and she was really clicking when it came to Stanford's offense, and she's definitely going to be a great leader for Stanford the years to come. But the most important thing for her and Stanford is for Kipp to be 100% healthy. So we'll see how it goes when it comes to Stanford. As for third place, the team that's in third place, it's Washington State and Utah. Then Cal is in fifth place. Then USC and UCLA are both tied for sixth place. Then Arizona State rounds up eighth place, then Arizona, Colorado, Oregon State, and then Oregon rounds up the bottom of the Pac-12. It's kind of tough for Oregon. They had a lot of roster turnover in terms of graduation in it when it came to a few of their players transferring. But other than that, Oregon will have a bright future ahead of them. They had to shuffle up their lineups, like I said. So there's that for Oregon. Cal has kind of been a little bit of a disappointment as of late. I mean, no offense to Cal. They definitely have a really great team. And Savannah Rennie's story is just absolutely amazing. And it's great to see Savannah Rennie, if you know her backstory, that's a pretty heartwarming one, especially her most recent one, when considering Savannah Rennie's a senior this year, and she had a recent video of Deer volleyball. It's kind of like Kobe Bryant's Deer basketball, and it's very heartwarming. And I almost kind of cry, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost cry when I heard that whole Deer volleyball story from Savannah Rennie. So that's definitely applause button worthy. As for Cal in general, obviously everyone knows that they are one of the more improved teams. They used to be at the bottom of the Pac-12. Now they're no longer at the bottom of the Pac-12. And they started 10-0 this year. They ran to a brick wall when it came to Stanford. But then they started to get it together. They managed to rattle off, I believe, 7 in a row before, which even included beating Washington State, and then they also beat Utah. They then lost to the California schools at the Southern California schools, being USC and UCLA. Then, Cal also had a bit of an oopsie against Oregon, which, Oregon has been down this year. So then after losing 3 in a row to that losing streak being against USC, UCLA, and Oregon, they went on another winning streak, beating Oregon State, Arizona, and Arizona State. And then this past week, Cal also lost at home to both UCLA and USC. So Cal has been one of the more suspect teams, considering if you look at that 10-0 start, they beat Oklahoma, which that's good. They beat Colorado State, which is also really good. Then they beat the CHS team. I believe that's Charleston State. So I'm not sure, but they beat this CHS team, which I haven't even heard of. They beat North Carolina, which decent. They beat UNLV, which is also decent. They beat UC Irvine, which this is one of UCI's down years. They beat Buffalo, which is good. They beat North Dakota State University, which is okay. They also beat SMC, which is St. Mary's, which is They beat them on back-to-back nights as well, or they beat them not once but twice, which is I mean, St. Mary's is okay, but it's not worth noting. So to me, Cal has been a bit of an up and down team. Honestly, I really had high hopes for Cal. I even had them possibly beating Stanford, but then Stanford kind of sent them back down to earth after their amazing 10-0 start. So we'll see how it goes for Cal this week. This week, Cal is at Colorado on Friday, and then they're at Utah on Sunday. That Utah one's going to be a big test, considering Cal definitely needs as many wins as possible. And after they play Colorado, the road gets really tough for them. After Colorado is Utah, like I said. Their next 4 games are on the road. Starting with Colorado, then Utah, then Washington. That's a huge one right there. Then they have Stanford, which, if they were to get a win against the Cardinal, that would be huge for the Golden Bears. But, they have to take it one at a time. But anything is possible, so we'll see. And especially with a rivalry game such as Cal and Stanford. So, all right, now let's jump into some big-time matchups this week. First up is Marquette and Creighton. What's at stake for Marquette and Creighton is their conference title, and anything is possible between those two teams. Anything is possible between those two teams, and Marquette is having one phenomenal year, So then the Big East Conference is on the line. It's at Creighton, and I got Creighton winning that one in 5. I think Creighton pulls off. Actually, no. I don't have Creighton winning in 5. I have Marquette winning in 5. I got Marquette winning in 5. Marquette is just having a really good year. I think Creighton, they just got unlucky the first time against Creighton. And it's definitely going to be huge. I mean, it's definitely going to be a huge match for both teams. But I definitely got Marquette winning that one in 5. I think Marquette gets a little bit of revenge, and I think they just squeak one out. They've had such a great year overall, so with only 3 losses, and one of them coming to Marquette. So we'll see how it goes for them. I think Creighton on paper looks good, but I think Marquette is just the better team, just overall wise. And then another big matchup is Loyola of Chicago against University of Northern Idaho. And what's at stake for them is their conference is also at stake right there. So, that's not really, it's pretty much UNI's conference to lose, honestly, because Loyola needs to win out, then UNI needs to lose out, and then Loyola's the outright champion. I really just don't see I really see UNI winning that one. I just don't see Loyola winning that one. I mean, granted, Loyola did pull off the victory the first time against UNI, but it's just, I just don't think Loyola is as consistent as Northern Idaho. So, no offense to Loyola. They're definitely having a great year, but last week Loyola lost to Illinois State. And I said last week that Illinois State could be a trap game for them, considering Illinois State isn't really the best team, but Illinois State, that's an inner-city rivalry game, and when it comes to rivalry games, you just got to throw out the records. So Loyola definitely made a boo-boo last week, and that definitely hurts their chances of winning the Mountain Valley Conference Championship. So there's that, and Loyola even lost at UNI the first time around. UNI's only loss of the conference was to Illinois State, and despite Illinois State isn't really consistent. They're not as consistent. They're not as consistent as Loyola and UNI. Those two are always the consistent ones of the Mountain Valley Conference, while Illinois State is just up and down. One week they have a really good week, and then the next week it's just... So, I got UNI beating Loyola this week. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see Loyola pulling off an upset, and I just don't see UNI just collapsing. And UNI's last game of the season is against Valparaiso, and that even if UNI loses that game against Loyola, they will definitely beat Valparaiso, considering Valparaiso is near the bottom, is pretty much mid-tier when it comes to that conference. I just don't see how UNI loses the conference championship. That's theirs to lose. Loyola pretty much needs to beat UNI, and then they also need to beat Drake, which is at the bottom, which I know they'll beat. But I just don't see the fact that Loyola will win this conference. UNI is going to be winning that conference, no doubt about it. Now for the last key matchup of the week. The last key matchup of the week is going to be a Big 12 matchup between Texas and Baylor. Dun, dun, dun. That's a huge matchup between those two teams. Last time around, Baylor was swept away at Texas. This time around, it's going to be at Waco, or Waco, however it's pronounced, and it's going to be tough. This one's a tough one to call. I think Texas wins that 1-5. I think Texas is going to have a tougher time beating Baylor at Baylor, but I think they're going to just pull it out because, Baylor's obviously going to come out firing on all cylinders considering they got spanked the first time around. It wasn't even close. That was just utter garbage that first time around. This time I think Baylor will be better prepared, and I think they'll put forth a better effort, but I think Texas has their number this year. Texas is just straight up more talented, Granted, they did lose that one game to Rice, but ever since that loss to Rice, Texas has not lost, and Texas always has Baylor's number. I don't remember the last time Baylor beat Texas, but it was like forever ago. So Texas is gonna probably win this one. Texas is winning in 5, and shout out to Texas Roundup Sports. Keep doing your thing, buddy. So now let's go into another key matchup, which is not really a key matchup, but it's a matchup that will decide which team automatically goes to the NCAA tournament. That's going to be against Princeton and Yale. And the reason now for those that follow the Ivy League, you're probably wondering, didn't Yale and Princeton face each other already? Well, that is true. However, Yale and Princeton both tied for first place in the conference. And according to the Ivy League guidelines, if those two teams tie for first place in the conference for first place, they have to play a tiebreaker game. So that game will take place on Friday. Yeah, Friday, and it's going to be at Princeton, since I guess Princeton has the tiebreaker over Yale in terms of number of sets won overall. So that's going to be a huge game for both Yale and Princeton. I have Princeton winning that one. I think Princeton just got a little bit unlucky the first time last week against Yale, and And, they obviously got past that Brown game where that one was also a trap game, but, I think they just got unlucky. That Princeton-Yale matchup last week, that game could have gone either way, especially in set 5. Yale won that 5th set 17-15. So Yale, I don't see Yale winning a second time. And I don't see Princeton losing at home because Princeton's a really good team at home, honestly. Is a really good home team, and they boast one of the better setters being Jesse Harris. I don't see Princeton losing this time around because Princeton had the conference championship won, and then, they lost in extra innings or in overtime or in past the 15-point cap. So Princeton, I definitely can see Princeton coming out with a lot of vengeance. They're going to have a lot of fire in their bellies, and they're definitely going to say, you know what, we're better than this. We're not losing to Yale twice in a row. So I got Princeton winning that, beating Yale in 4 sets. So, Yale will be lucky to get to even take a set. I'll be nice and say that Yale takes a set off of Princeton, but Princeton's just going to take this one in 4. So that's for the Ivy League. So, yeah, and I rarely talk about the Ivy League. So, but that was a huge win for Yale, though. So Yale was definitely on its A game, and especially since it was at Yale. So yeah, you have to give it up for Yale. I thought Princeton was going to run away with the Ivy League, but they managed to turn it around after losing to Harvard. They beat Cornell, which was a rivalry game, and they beat Columbia, which was the baby blue rivalry, and then they also beat Princeton. And that was a huge win, winning at Yale in New Haven, Connecticut. So now they got to play Princeton again, and they just gotta hope that they can get it together and they can just straight up pull off another upset, because if not, then they got to hope that they make the NCAA tournament, because the Ivy League is for sure not a Power 5 conference. So there's pretty much that. Now let's get into the conference tournaments, as we are approaching almost 90 minutes. Holy crap. Talk about time flying. So now for conference tournaments, the Horizon League has the number 1 seed, Wright State, number 2 seed, Milwaukee, as the number 3 seed. As number 3 seed, Green Bay will face number 6 seed, Oakland, and then number 4 seed, UIC, and then number 5 seed, Northeast Kentucky faces off. I'm just going to go rapid fire when it comes to predicting these tournaments. I say Milwaukee wins this one. Now I'm going to briefly talk about each conference tournament. I say Milwaukee wins this conference tournament just because overall they just had had such a great week last week, beating Green Bay and beating UIC. To me, I think this was the regular season conference was Milwaukee's to lose. They just had that rough 3-game losing streak, which really put them behind the 8 ball. At the same time, Wright also had a 3-game losing streak, which also put them behind the 8 ball, and then they never lost again. But I think Milwaukee this time around they're just going to win. They win that tournament. The upset of the shocker of the tournament will probably be, my prediction will be Oakland beating Green Bay. I think Oakland beats Green Bay. And who knows, maybe the Oakland fans will be able to get some revenge on. And who knows, maybe the Oakland's women's volleyball team will be able to avenge the Oakland Raiders after Green Bay beat Oakland in the NFL, if you know what I mean. Hint, hint, shout out to Larry B. But other than that, I got Milwaukee winning the Horizon League tournament. Now for the conference USA tournament. It's only a 4-team tournament with West Kentucky versus Mid-Tennessee. Mid-Tennessee is the 4 seed. West Kentucky is the 1 seed. Rice versus UTEP. It's not a 4-team tournament. It's an 8-team tournament. Western Kentucky versus Mid-Tennessee. 1 versus 8. Rice versus UTEP, 2 versus 7. North Texas versus UTSA, 3 versus 6. And then Marshall versus Florida Atlantic, 4 versus 5. I'm taking Rice to win that tournament. I think Rice had a bit of a... Rice was the hotter team. I mean, Rice was definitely a hot team going. Rice and West Kentucky were both hot going into their matchup against West Kentucky, but they fell just a little short. I think Rice gets back on track, and I think Rice manages to take that Conference USA tournament by storm. So we'll see how it goes. But now it's going to the Colonial Athletic Conference tournament, where it's 3-seed Hofstra versus 6-seed Delaware, and 4th-seed Northeastern versus 5th-seed Elon. Number 1 and 2 seeds are Towson and James Madison. I got James Madison winning that tournament. James Madison is definitely, despite Towson being very impressive this year, I think James Madison pulls off the upset. I'm picking a lot of 2 seeds, but I think James Madison they definitely have the talent, and they definitely have the skill to beat said team. So, honestly, I think James Madison takes that one. It'll be a really good final between Towson and James Madison. Now let's go into the A10 conference tournament, where it's basically going to be 3-seed St. Louis versus 6-seed Davidson, and 4-seed George Washington versus 5th-seed LaSalle. Number 1 and 2 seeds are VCU and Dayton. I'm taking VCU to win that one, considering they won their conference outright. And, I don't see anyone slowing down VCU anytime soon. So we'll see how, I got VCU winning that one. Now for the Big South tournament, it is number 3 seed Campbell versus number 6 seed Charleston Southern. And number 4 seed Presbyterian versus UNC Asheville. And the number 1 and 2 seeds are Towson and High Point. I take Towson to win that one. They're just on a roll when it comes to that conference. High Point is not the same as it was last year when they had Abby Broadstreet, coming out of Brea Olinda. But, Towson is definitely is just the hotter school when it comes to that conference. So I got Towson winning that tournament. I think it'll be Towson High Point in the final, though. But Towson has just had High Point's number this whole season. Now for the ASUN Conference. First, number 1 the number 3 Liberty versus number 6 North Florida. Number 4 Lipscomb versus number 5 Stetson. The number 1 and 2 seeds are Florida Gulf Coast and Kennesaw State. I got Florida Gulf Coast winning that one. They've just been dominant when it comes. They're dominant when it comes to blocking the ball. They're dominant when it comes to getting kills. They just have better weapons. Florida Gulf Coast is just a perennial powerhouse team in the ASUN Conference. Now for the Big Sky Conference tournament, number 3 Northern Arizona versus number 6 Idaho, and number 4 Montana State versus number 5 Sacramento State. Then the number 1 and 2 seeds are Northern Colorado and Weber State. I got Northern Colorado winning this one. They just got more talent across the board. It'll be close against Weber State, but we'll see how it goes. So now for the American Conference tournament, number 3 UCF versus number 6 Tulsa, number 4 Houston versus number 5 Tulane. Number 1 and 2 seeds are Cincinnati and SMU. I got Cincy winning this one. Cincy has just been dominant this year. This is debatably one of their better teams. I think UCF can give them a challenge. I think UCF can also make their way into the final. I think they can beat SMU, but SMU is also having a great year. I think UCF also played in won their conference. There was a North or an East Conference, an East ACC American Conference tournament, American Conference in the West Division, and I think UCF won was a second in the East Division, while SMU was first in the West Division, which gave him the number 2 seed. So I think UCF gets past Tulsa, and then UCF gets past SMU, and I think Cincy just barely squeaks one off against UCF, but we'll see how it goes. Now for this 4-team American East Conference tournament, Albany versus Stony Brook, and New Hampshire versus Hartford. I got Albany winning that one. I think Albany beats Stony Brook. New Hampshire beats Hartford. Albany barely wins against New Hampshire. It sounds cliche, but I think that's how it's going to go. I think Albany will have a little bit more in the tank when it comes to this conference tournament, but we'll see. So now for the Mid-American Conference Tournament. This one is very complicated. It's an 8-team conference tournament, but it's very complicated. Number 5, Ohio, faces number 8, Kent State, and the winner of that plays number 4, Ball State, and the winner of the Ball State versus Ohio/Kent State matchup gets to play number 1, Miami. Also in the first round, it's number 6, Akron versus number 7, Buffalo. Winner gets to play number 3, Bowling Green, and the winner of that gets to play number 2, Central Michigan, and the finals are on Sunday. I'm taking Miami to win that one. I think Miami gets it done. I think the final will consist of Central Michigan and Miami. I think Miami will cruise on to the final. Will cruise on in the championship match. So yeah. Now for the Northeast Conference Tournament, I've got number 1 seed Robert Morris versus number 4 seed Central Connecticut, and then number 2 Sacred Heart versus number 3 LIU. I'm taking Robert Morris and LIU in the final, and I'm picking Robert Morris to win it all. Robert Morris almost went undefeated in regular season Northeast Conference play until LIU upset them. I think LIU pulls the upset against Sacred Heart, and then Robert Morris gets the revenge on LIU. So now for the OVC tournament, number 1 Jacksonville State versus number 1 SIUE. Then number 2 Southwest Missouri versus number 7 Tennessee Tech. Number 3 Murray State versus number 6 UT Martin. And number 5 Morehead State versus number 4 Morehead State versus number 5 Austin PA. I got Jacksonville State and Murray State both in the final. I'm taking Jacksonville State to win it all. Jacksonville State was just dominant in conference play, and they have no intention of slowing down for anybody. It's all gas, no brakes for them. Look for Murray State to make it a little bit competitive, though. Now for the Patriot League tournament, number 3 Army West Point versus number 6 Loyola Maryland. Number 4 Navy versus number 5 Lehigh. Number 1 and 2 seeds are American and Colgate. They both shared the regular season title, but American had the tiebreaker. There's no better way of saying this. It's going to be American and Colgate in the final. I got American winning this one. I think American's going to win it in 5. They're going to win the conference tournament in 5, and it's going to be an epic final though between American and Colgate. It's going to be really good, though, so no offense to the other 4 teams, but I just think American and Colgate are just that much higher than the rest of the conference. So now let's go into the Southland Conference. It's an 18 conference. Stephen F. Austin versus New Orleans, number 1 versus number 8. Number 2, Sam Houston State versus Southern Louisiana. Number 3, Northwestern State versus number 6, Houston Baptist. And number 4, A&M Corpus Christi versus number 5, Central Arkansas. I got Stephen F. Austin winning this tournament, but for an upset, I will pick Houston Baptist over Northwestern State, and then Sam Houston State. And then I think the final will be Stephen F. Austin versus Sam Houston State. Stephen F. Austin is having a phenomenal year. They went unblemished in conference play, and I definitely think Stephen F. Austin has no intention of slowing down. So now for the Southwest Athletic Conference, it's an 8-team tournament. Number 1 Alabama A&M versus number 8 Grambling State. Number 2 Prairie View A&M versus number 7 Arkansas Pine Bluff. Number 3 Jackson State versus number 6 Texas Southern, and then number 4 Southern versus number 5 Alabama State. I've got Alabama A&M and Jackson State in the final. I think Alabama A&M barely wins. I think Alabama A&M is just a cut above the rest. But, you never know with some of these conference tournaments, so we'll see how it goes. So now we go into the Sun Belt Conference, where this conference is very complicated. It's going to be number 5 Louisiana versus number 8 Arkansas State in the first round, and then number 2 App State versus number 7 UTA. the winner of Louisiana-Arkansas gets Troy, and then the winner of App State-UTA gets South Alabama, and then the winner of the Troy Louisiana / South Arkansas State match gets Texas State, and then the winner of the South Alabama versus App State / UTA gets Coastal Carolina, and then the winner plays on Sunday. I just don't know why they have to format it like that. Either way, I'm picking Texas State to win. I've seen Texas State play. Cheyenne Husky is just one dominant player, and it's not just the Cheyenne Husky show. It's just everyone gets involved. Karen Cheesum, who's coached at Texas State for 40 years, has done an excellent job. She knows what she's doing, and I've seen Texas State play. They are no joke, and with that head coach of theirs, they're just rooting and tooting above the rest. So yeah. So there's the Sun Belt Conference, and I'm picking Texas State to repeat as champions. They will get a bit of a battle, and I'm picking Coastal Carolina to make the final and try to take down Texas State. So, but I think overall, I think Texas State just wins it all. They're just better, well coached. They're just really well coached. Now for the Summit League, we have Purdue-Fort Wayne, number 3 Purdue-Fort Wayne versus number 6 Oral Roberts, and then number 4 Omaha versus number 5 South Dakota State, and then the top seeds are South Dakota and Denver's the host school. I got South Dakota and Denver in the final. South Dakota has just been a dominant force when it comes to the Summit League, and Denver is the home school, so they have a lot to play for, especially in front of their fans. I got South Dakota barely winning the final in 5 over Denver. I think Denver gives them a really good battle, but I think South Dakota overall just takes it because they're built for pressure. They don't fear anybody. So there's that. Now the last conference tournament we have is the Western Athletic Conference. Number 3 Kansas City versus number 6 Seattle University. And then number 4 UT Rio Grande Valley versus number 5 Utah Valley. The number 1 seeds are New Mexico State and Grand Canyon. I have New Mexico State winning this one over Grand Canyon. It's cliche, but I think New Mexico State has had no problems when it comes to the Western Athletic Conference. The only team that New Mexico State had a problem with was against Cal Baptist. And I really need to address this. I don't know how, in God's name, Cal Baptist did not make this tournament. Am I missing something, or why did Cal Baptist miss this tournament? Why? They finished in the top 6 when it comes to the conference. The top 6 teams get into the conference, and then Cal Baptist would have had to play UT Rio Grande, and then Utah Valley would have had to play Kansas City. Honestly, I don't know what it is, but it's very disappointing on why Cal Baptist didn't make the tournament. Maybe I don't know what it was. I've searched everywhere. I found nothing. I didn't see any violations. I think why is Cal Baptist not in this tournament? Believe it or not, Cal Baptist was the only conference team to take New Mexico State to 5 sets. It's absolutely shocking and disappointing because I think Cal Baptist can do some damage. Shout out to Larry B, by the way, who is a huge Cal Bap fan, Lance up. But other than that, it's ridiculous. Why is New Mexico State pretty much going to get a pass? And why is New Mexico State is pretty much going to get a pass unless someone else challenges them. But no team has challenged them. The only other team, like I said, the only other team that took New Mexico State to 5 was Cal Baptist, and they're not in the tournament. I am disappointed. I really am, and I think Larry is also disappointed too. But other than that, Cal Baptist should be in the Western Athletic Conference tournament. Why? What is going on? I need answers. That's just so disappointing. And also, Cal Baptist went 5 with Grand Canyon. You better believe that. You better believe that Cal Baptist can do some damage in this conference tournament, and they can make some noise. So the fact that Cal Baptist is not in this tournament is blasphemous. It's very disappointing. How dare you? How dare you? But other than that, hopefully whatever this problem is, hopefully it gets resolved. Hopefully we will see Cal Baptist in the NCAA tournament one day. But, big ups to Cal Baptist. Having gone 5 with New Mexico State isn't easy. So great season, Cal Baptist. I just wish you could have had a better chance when it came to making the tournament. So that's that for all the conference tournaments. Woo, we are almost nearing 2 hours. Now to close up, we have the new top 25 AVCA coaches poll. So number 25 is Illinois. Number 24 is Cal. Number 23 is Michigan. Number 22 is Washington State. Number 21 is Rice. 20 through 16 is San Diego, Western Kentucky, Hawaii, Purdue, and Utah. 15 through 11 is Florida, Kentucky, BYU, Creighton, Colorado State, and Washington. 9 through 5 is Marquette, Penn State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin. And 4 through 1, I think I might have missed a number. Or I'm sorry, 10 through 6 is Washington, Marquette, Penn State, Minnesota, Nebraska. And then 5 through 1 is Wisconsin, Stanford, Baylor, Pitt, and Texas, rounding out the top 25. Nothing really is surprising there. The receiving votes are USC, UCLA, Stephen F. Austin, Missouri, and Texas A&M. So there's that, and that's going to be that for this week. We talked a lot about everything in regards to high school girls volleyball and the NCAA and some of the NCAA teams that have clinched a spot in the NCAA tournament and some of these conference tournaments that are going on this weekend. And it's definitely going to be a really great weekend. And I'm really looking forward to next week's show. And I'm really looking forward to which teams have punched their ticket into the NCAA tournament and which teams will have to wait for December 1st to arrive. But until then, cue the music. Well, first of all, you can find me at Teran Rodriguez 1 on Twitter. Teran is my first name, Teran. And then Rodriguez is spelled Rodriguez. And then the number 1. So that once again, that's at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can find me on Twitter, covering lots of sports, and I'll probably be having updates on the women's volleyball matches going on. But until then, cue the music! Once again, this is your boy Teran Rodriguez signing off, y'all. And remember, if you plan on going when it comes to volleyball, go for the ball. Once again, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Peace.